how do you define this maturity? You've already alluded to it. You've actually stated it, but I want to focus and zoom in on it for a moment so that people know what we're talking about when we talk about maturity. Maturity is simply what?
It's simply the ability to remain relational and act like myself when I face big emotions, right? So you can define it a bunch of different ways, but one thing that helps me is the concept of emotional capacity, and that is how much emotional weight does it take before I lose my ability to be relational, I stop acting like myself, and I can't return to joy.
Mm.
How much emotional weight does it take? That is how I measure my maturity.
What do you mean then by being yourself? Act like yourself in the middle of all this.
So let's just say that I start to feel anxiety. And all of a sudden I say, we're scrapping all of our plans. We're going to change everything. We're going to do this now. This is what we're all about now. And then tomorrow I feel anxious about something else, and I change the whole thing again tomorrow. And it's like, and then I get hyper and I get active and I make bad decisions, and I just lead in a totally different style when I'm anxious and I'm afraid. I have turned into a different person because of my fear. That's what I mean. I don't act like myself. Or I get angry, and all of a sudden you did something that made me mad, and now I blow up at you. And I went from being a kind, engaged, relational person to being completely non-relational, blowing up, acting like a 3-year-old, right? So when we don't act like ourselves, most of the time what we're doing is we're reverting to a younger version of ourselves. So I can go from being a 50-something leader to acting like a 5-year-old who didn't make mama happy, right? And I'm having the exact same meltdown and emotional temper tantrum I would have had with my mom as a 5-year-old, but I'm 50. So what's happening is something got triggered. I'm not acting like myself right now. I'm acting like somebody else. And that's usually what ends up happening. So there's some consistency to this. And there's also just the developing that. So when I first discovered Jim's life model system, I was a senior pastor, and he had charts in there on infant, child, adult, parent, elder level maturity, and some of the core characteristics. So I simplify it this way. An infant can't do anything for themselves. So if an infant feels an upsetting emotion, you are going to have to soothe them. You can't look at the baby and say, just calm yourself down. You're going to be fine. I mean, in no capacity to do that. So the mark of their immaturity is zero capacity to handle any emotion without somebody else needing to come in and calm them down. Child level maturity, I am beginning to learn with your help. I can begin calming myself down with some help and guidance. And then by the time I'm an adult, I'm supposed to know how to feel these emotions and return to joy and handle more weight. So I expect a 17-year-old to be able to handle more than a 7-year-old, to be able to handle more than a 7-month-old, right? Mm-hmm. And in the same way, that's because their maturity development is directly related to their ability to handle emotions and still be relational and act like themselves. So that's kind of what this is driving at. And when I first came across this and I looked at this, I'm like, okay, so infants have no capacity. Children have the ability to take care of one person. They can take care of themselves or they can take care of you, but I can't take care of both at the same time. I can either make sure I'm okay or I can make sure you're okay. And so if and when I looked at this, whereas adults think about the group and then what is best for all of us? How do we create win-wins? What is best for me and my people to collectively? And that is, it's good for me and I have some to share with you. I can make sure that I'm okay while I'm taking care of you. So I looked at this and realized that as a senior pastor, I was functioning a lot of the time. I was functioning at child level maturity, trying to be an elder. And the gap in the emotional weight that an elder carries and the capacity of a child to carry was really big. And so I remember often wishing there was an older, more experienced veteran pastor I could lean on to help me carry some of the weight of all of the responsibility of this, because I realized that the emotional weight of leading a community is not meant to be carried by somebody in their 30s or 40s who are still raising their kids at home. It's meant to be carried by somebody who's done raising their kids, who's got this stuff. It doesn't mean that young people can't be pastors, but it means they need to be surrounded by these elders who have this gravitas to them that is not easily overwhelmed by the things going on in the church. That's what we're looking at here. So I became a senior pastor when I was 35. I don't think it was wrong for me to be. I had good visionary instincts. I was a good teacher. I understood how to run a church. But there are all the relational and emotional things that go into leading a church I was not up to. Right. And so that's why there could be days when I would appear conceited, and there would be days when I would appear humble. Right. It's like you can be all over the place with all the various things that you're dealing with. So I'm looking at at all of this, and I'm thinking what I needed was people to help me carry the weight. That is, people you can confide in and talk to, and that's I think what's a lot of is missing for our younger pastors.
The rare leadership aspect, that maturity to have people alongside them.
Yeah, the maturity that has other people alongside them, that they're not in this alone. And you think about the isolation that comes with leadership. It's like if we had a different model of leadership that says, as a leader, my core job is creating a culture, which means I need to be in relationship, in a cultural relationship. I can't just be out here telling you how to create your culture. I have to actually be engaged in that culture and be a part of it. And that actually solves a lot of problems for me as well, because I do have other people handling some of the weight of what's going on, and it isn't just all on me. The churches, we talk about this a little bit. Churches have been too often too quick to embrace a kingmaker model of leadership, and that is, we hire a king and then we will applaud you and praise you and pay you and give you all kinds of praise as long as you do this work for us and make everything okay. And so we look at the pastor, you go, well, you're more educated than me, you're more talented than me, you're more anointed than me, you have whatever. And he says, so you just do it, right? And there's a lot of us as pastors who we were raised like, okay, yeah, that's my job. I'll step in, I'll do that. And you're like, well, essentially we just made it a contract where I'll be your king, right? Your job is and as long as I make you happy, there'll be no rebellion and no revolt, and I'll stay king. But, and it's also why you get a lot of people in this situation where when problems come up, first thing they do is circle the wagons, find out who are their people, who's with me, who's against me, and things begin to split immediately over who's going to win. And that's a sign of immaturity as well.